Discover how a cleaning lady revealed a hidden truth that transformed two blind millionaires' kids. Every day felt like a battle for Maria. At 36, she clocked into the lavish homes of those who lived in luxury, wiping clean glass tables and polishing marble floors, while her mind raced with a million worries. The bills stacked higher each month, and with two kids depending on her, she knew she had to keep pushing, even when fatigue threatened to pull her under. Today, she was at Arthur Green's mansion, a place filled with pristine affluence that reminded her of everything she couldn't have. As she dusted the extensive library, she wondered if her children could ever experience this world. Albeit as guests, never as owners. She paused, her gaze landing on a dusty shelf. In that moment, a whisper of curiosity broke through the monotony of her routine. As she reached up to assess the area, her fingers grazed the edge of an old piece of paper. With a quick survey of the dimly lit space, Maria pulled an envelope from behind the books. Intrigued, it felt like fate that morning, a chance to uncover something special. Initially, the letters spoke of mundane matters. Mundane tasks, rearranging furniture, and the strains of a busy life. But then she uncovered something deeper. Words fraught with emotion revealing the existence of two blind children from Arthur's past, Ethan and Olivia. They had never known their late mother's extraordinary talent. The truth enveloped her like a heavy cloud. As her heart raced, doubts seeped in. What could a cleaning lady possibly bring to this family's upheaval? The words battled in her mind, a fierce clash of determination and fear. What was she risking by digging deeper? By considering stepping into a world where her worth was consistently measured against fortunes? Was she merely an outsider in a game that demanded the richest stakes? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The pressure mounted with every discovery. Maria's pulse quickened as she began to learn more about the twins, how their lives were shaped under the shadow of expectations even bigger than her own. They were navigating a mountain of challenges that mirrored her sacrifices and struggles as a single mother. The weight of this knowledge became an unbearable burden, and the path ahead seemed uncertain. Could she be their voice? Would Arthur ever listen to someone like her? As the art competition loomed on the horizon, the stakes grew higher, equal measures of hope and fear coursing through her veins. Maria felt a sense of purpose that was hard to ignore. She had to push the twins' artistry to the forefront. Yet, with that came a profound sense of responsibility. What if they failed? What if her efforts were in vain? Another discarded endeavor lost to the winds of privilege. Stand before the powerful art dealer. She trembled, torn between an urge to flee and the fierce desire to protect the twins' legacy. As the moment of confrontation arrived, her linked fate with Ethan and Olivia loomed large, poised on the delicate thread of their futures. Would her voice echo in a room silenced by power, or would it be yet another whisper drowned out by wealth? With each thought, Maria felt the invisible walls closing, and this was her moment. But was she brave enough to seize it? Maria stood at the threshold of the gallery, her heart pounding like a drumbeat set to a frantic tempo. Artworks hung upon the walls, framed visions of creativity and expression that felt alien yet profoundly intimate. Each piece whispered stories of the artists, thoughts trapped within the confines of color and form, yearning to break free. She could almost sense Ethan and Olivia's spirits within those canvases, their dreams calling out for recognition. Her mind swirled with the remnants of self-doubt. What could someone like her contribute to this arena of elite artistry? She had spent years buried in domestic tasks, yet now she found herself at the nexus of potential and expectation. Maria's gaze drifted toward the entrance as guests clad in designer suits strolled in, their laughter tinkling like wind chimes in the breeze. The sight of them filled her with a profound sense of alienation, as if she were gazing into a world built on glass, desires and aspirations reflected but never accessible. The moment the art dealer, the very architect of destiny for the twins, made his entrance, the air thickened with purposeful intent. Maria's hands grew clammy as she fidgeted with the edges of the documents she clutched. Within those pages lay Ethan and Olivia's stories, their uniqueness reduced to mere bullet points against the backdrop of opulence. Were those words sufficient to convey the depth of their experience? The struggle of being blind in a world that treasured sight, the yearning for acceptance in the labyrinth of societal expectations? She took a deep breath, recalling the letters that had ignited her resolve. Arthur's eyes mirrored the haunted essence of a broken past, revealing not just a man burdened by grief, but a father desperate to understand his children. What could she say that would awaken the dormant potential within him? As she approached, Maria felt her limbs yield to the weight of trepidation, a reminder of her social standing, the invisible shackles that accompanied her. Hello, Mr. Green," she stammered, the words slipping out in a rush. Her pulse quickened as she fought to maintain eye contact. "I believe your children have talent. Vital voices that deserve to be heard." Ethan and Olivia's artistry, she was convinced, was meant to shine. There was truth in her belief, even if it felt too great a mantle for her to bear. Arthur's brows furrowed slightly, but his eyes bore a spark of intrigue. "What do you mean?" he inquired, an edge of skepticism woven through his tone. His stature loomed, commanding the space between them, but Maria saw past the surface. This was a man searching for redemption, lost in the shadow of what could have been. Gathering her resolve, she plunged into the depths of her speech, the letters lending her their strength. As she recounted snippets of their lives, tales infused with raw emotion, she felt the flares of determination light up within her. Each word spilled forth like an offering, a tapestry of hope woven from the threads of passion and pain. Her voice grew steadier, resonant with the vibrancy of purpose as she laid bare the twins' desires to create, to connect, to reshape the reality that so often silenced them. But even as she spoke, a chilling realization crept over her. What if she misstepped? What if her intrusion into this elite sphere brought nothing but calamity? The fear weighed heavily on her heart as uncertainty encroached, clouding the clarity born of her newfound purpose. "Why should I heed the voice of a cleaning lady?" Arthur's tone changed, seeming to challenge her very existence within this moment. The question hung in the air like a sword poised to strike, forcing Maria to confront herself and what she truly represented. Would she allow his dismissal to extinguish the fire that had ignited her spirit? Before she could summon a reply, she realized she was no mere cleaning lady. In that moment, she felt the fortitude unfurling within her. Maria recognized a truth deeper than her profession, a truth that could break down the barriers of wealth and privilege. And as she boldly prepared to respond, the shadows of uncertainty loomed larger. Would this transformative moment be an obstacle to greatness or a stepping stone toward an unforeseen alliance? The answer hung in the balance, her heart racing in anticipation of what would come next. "Mr. Green," Maria began, her voice steadier but tinged with urgency, "I understand how easy it is to dismiss someone who occupies a role deemed less than. But in that perceived insignificance lies a perspective that perhaps you have not considered. Your children are immensely talented, and I sit in a unique position to observe talents that don't shimmer in the shadow of wealth yet radiate authenticity." She steadied herself, banishing the tremor that once threatened to undermine her conviction. The image of Ethan and Olivia surfaced in her mind, their brush strokes, their spirit, their journey, a rawness that no textbook or gallery could encapsulate. Across from her, Arthur's hard gaze softened momentarily, a flicker of understanding igniting for a fleeting second. "But you're saying that just because they're different?" he countered, skepticism threaded through his curtness. The air vibrated with tension as he challenged her. "No, sir," she replied, each word crystallizing the metamorphosis within her. "I'm saying their difference is their strength. They see the world through a lens of creativity and resilience that many never have to embrace. Their blindness is not a limitation. It's a unique form of sight that allows them to capture the essence of experience in ways I cannot describe adequately in writing. They deserve more than mere representation on paper." For a second, She believed he might comprehend, envisioning glimpses of potential flickering behind his guarded demeanor. But doubt clawed back, gnawing at her insides. What could she possibly articulate that would convince him, a man accustomed to power and privilege? The silence grew, pressing against her chest like an anvil. In that weight, fear morphed into focus. She realized that her voice carried the weight of not just their dreams, but of her own reclamation, a chance to assert her narrative in the ever-turning tides of privilege and power. Every brushstroke in Ethan's current work tells a story. One you need to hear, she pressed, gathering momentum. Her confidence surged, fueled by an urgency that transcended her circumstances. Olivia's vision of color is astonishing. It invokes emotions that many cannot fathom because they have never navigated darkness. I implore you to consider granting them not just recognition, but the opportunity to share their voices with this world. Arthur shifted uneasily, inner conflict flickering across his features. A moment of vulnerability emerged, and she seized it. His children had suffered immensely beneath the weight of expectation, not just from the outside world but from him. Perhaps, in her, he witnessed a chance to redeem that loss. Have you ever asked them how they view their art? She asked, her voice softening. No artist must create in solitude. They long for dialogue, for understanding, for someone to recognize the beauty they're conjuring. Her personal stakes felt unbelievably high, the very act of advocating for Ethan and Olivia resonating deep within her own identity. As the narrative of her own transformation blossomed alongside theirs, pain and hope intertwined, both transforming her. Arthur's enigmatic expression shifted. The vulnerability layering beneath his guarded surface provoked her to dig deeper. Please, Mr. Green, let us redefine what success means. It doesn't have to be paved with conventional accolades. Sometimes it's about the heart, the essence of what remains unsaid. A profound silence enveloped them, the hush deepening with shared contemplation. She held her breath, waiting for a response that could change everything, both for her and for Ethan and Olivia. But what would he choose? The confines of comfort or the risk of embracing the unknown? As the moment hung in the air, pregnant with possibilities, Maria's resolve crystallized. No matter the outcome, she had spoken up, daring to bear her essence in a space she once feared to tread. Then, almost instinctively, she glanced towards the gallery entrance, the influx of laughter and light seeping into the seriousness of their confrontation. That laughter was a reminder of a world she had once longed for but had always seemed just out of reach. The question lingered, poised to prolong the tension. Would this moment truly mark the dawn of understanding, or would Arthur retreat further into the shell of skepticism? In that moment, the future of Ethan and Olivia's art, and her own place within this world hung in the balance, waiting for the light to pierce through. Maria sensed the tension crackle in the air as she awaited Arthur Green's response, her heart pounding in her chest. Each second felt like an eternity, the silence amplifying her earlier resolve, now interwoven with a new layer of uncertainty. Mr. Green, she finally exhaled, a shaky breath granting her words a weight she had not anticipated. This isn't just about art. It's about acknowledging what you may not want to see. Your children don't merely create. They transform pain into something beautiful and powerful. Arthur's brows knitted together, shadows playing across his face, as if grappling with a revelation that lurked in the corners of his mind. There was something in his posture, an unspoken question that begged to be confronted. That beauty means very little if it never sees the light of day, he remarked, his voice now a mix of challenge and curiosity. Yet beneath it, she sensed the flickering of a man who might possess a heart still capable of change. Perhaps it was this moment that triggered a shift within her. Instead of waiting for his approval, Maria felt a surge of courage swell in her chest. She was done seeking validation from someone who occupied a privileged pedestal above her. It wasn't enough to just hope for a breakthrough, she needed to make a tangible impact. What if I could help arrange a showing? A chance for Ethan and Olivia to display their work? It surprised her how nonchalantly the suggestion slipped from her lips, a flicker of hidden ambition igniting further possibilities. Arthur's expression shifted, caught between intrigue and disbelief. A showing? With whom? In a gallery that sells to the highest bidder? The incredulity was palpable, but hidden beneath it was the faintest lilt of consideration. Yes, Maria pressed on, her tone gaining prominence. Not a typical gallery exhibiting art for profit, but one that prioritizes authenticity over perfection. These children, your children, have something to say, and their voices deserve a platform. Their experiences cannot be brushed aside just because they don't conform to a status quo. She paused, watching Arthur's internal struggle play out across his features. She recognized that despite his wealth, he was trapped in a framework of expectations just as much as Ethan and Olivia. Her own reflection in the polished surface of ambition surfaced. She was confronting her past, reclaiming a narrative not defined by others, but forged by strength and purpose. "Are you willing to step into this with me?" she asked, determination solidifying her tone. It was a challenge, not merely for Arthur, but also a declaration for herself. The fear that had once smothered her resolve was beginning to dissipate, replaced by an invigorating sense of action and purpose. Arthur hesitated, his shoulders slumping slightly under the weight of the moment. This was an invitation for both of them, an opportunity to redefine what they could achieve together. Maria wanted more than just a chance for his children. She sought a collaborative venture that could elevate herself and those around her. "Let us work together. Not just for them, but for both of us. We can create a narrative of resilience, of authentic expression that changes perceptions." But as she spoke, Maria felt a thread of self-doubt weave through her determination. Did she have the knowledge, the know-how to pull this off? Could she truly navigate the complex world of art galleries, facilitate a showing where authenticity prevailed over commercial appeal? In a fleeting moment of panic, she almost backtracked, but she suppressed it, grounding herself in the truth of her mission. Maria had always been a resourceful woman, and the years of cleaning and observing had endowed her with insights that surpassed many she had encountered in more affluent circles. "Maybe this is all a fool's errand," Arthur murmured, glancing downward, seemingly resigned. "My kids are used to disappointment, accustomed to a father who strayed from their passions." "No," Maria said firmly, taking a step closer, "this is an opportunity to rewrite that narrative. They deserve more than dismissal. They deserve to be heard. Just like you." As she took in the gravity of her own words, a ripple of anticipation coursed through her. For the first time, she felt anchored not just to a cause, but to her own burgeoning identity and capabilities. She was ready to confront her fears, challenge the expectations set upon her, and partner with Arthur in this pursuit. With one final gaze locked onto Arthur's, she knew the decision hung tenuously above them. This was not merely about art anymore. It was about confronting a legacy of silence and transforming it into a collective journey of resurgence. "Will you step into the unknown with me, Arthur?" The gravity of her question loomed large, and as the laughter from the gallery continued to filter through, Maria felt the sense of their world slowly drawing nearer, a world where their collaboration could reshape not just their paths but also the perception of adversity and triumph in the realms of art. What awaited them on this path, she pondered. Would Arthur's acceptance ignite a flame that would light the way for Ethan and Olivia? Or would the shadows of doubt overshadow their collective ambition, leaving Maria to face the daunting realm of uncertainty alone? The silence between them stretched thin, filled with unspoken possibility. Maria watched Arthur navigate the storm brewing within. She could sense the jagged edges of his hesitance, an emotional barricade set against the prospect of change. Yet, it wasn't just the gallery that awaited transformation. Both of them stood at the precipice of redefining their realities. "Let's not waste this opportunity," Maria prompted, forcing a steadiness into her voice. The voices that demand to be heard are often the ones silenced the longest. "I refuse to let Ethan and Olivia remain in the shadows, and neither should you." There was a flicker in Arthur's eyes at her insistence, a conflict that seemed to ripple through the air. She seized on it, realizing that she needed to articulate not merely her vision, but her readiness to help him shatter the invisible chains binding him to his past. "Imagine what it would mean for them, Arthur," she continued, feeling each word dig deeper into the desperate ground on which they stood. "Imagine a showing where they aren't judged by their pedigree, but by their truth, a truth formed from a life painted in raw emotion and resilience. A subtle crease formed on his brow, and Maria knew she had breached a wall. It was no longer just about art. It was about healing the wounds hidden beneath the surface. She needed to find a way to connect with him on a level that transcended art alone. A platform where their experiences intertwined in powerful ways. "I'm willing to put in the work, the research, the outreach, everything it takes," she promised. Each sentence manifested her burning determination to step beyond the confines of expectation. "But I can't do it without your support," explicitly and unwaveringly. The thought of stepping into uncharted territory made her pulse quicken. There had been a time when she would have felt unworthy of leading this charge, centered only on the menial tasks of cleaning. But those days were fading into a past that no longer defined her. Maria was beginning to understand that she held an arsenal of unrecognized skills, her ability to listen, to empathize, and to strategize under pressure. As Arthur shifted his weight, uncertainty dancing in the lines etched across his face, Maria contemplated her next move. She needed to inspire him to see beyond his fears. "We have a chance here, Arthur," she said, her voice softening but holding firm. "Not just for Ethan and Olivia, but for you too. The person you want to be. The father they need." The words cut through the air like a knife. His shoulders tensed, and for a moment, the vulnerability in his expression was palpable. He was a father caught in the whirlwind of expectation and remorse, battling the realization that his children's art was not burdensome but liberating. Maria took a breath, recognizing this moment was as pivotal for her growth as it was for him. "Let me help you rediscover what it means to support your children, to stand alongside them," she pressed on, her spirit unshakable. "Let us create a space where they can flourish together. We can break this cycle." Slowly, she began to see the embers of resolve ignite in Arthur's eyes. The flicker was small, but it was there. She could feel the possibility pulsating between them, an electric current that promised to invade their uncertainties. But as she felt the tide shifting, the gravity of responsibility reared its head. Could she navigate the intricacies of the art world, engage with critics, and ensure the authenticity she craved wouldn't be smothered by commercial demands? She felt the weight settle heavily within. The encouraging flicker of hope was not without the dread of failure. "Just give me a sign, Arthur," she requested, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Show me that you're willing to step into this with me and face what we both dread. Let us find a way through the pain together." As understanding began to crystallize across Arthur's features, Maria sensed a path forward looming ahead. The real question loomed now: how far was she willing to go? Would she risk her heart, her aspirations, and the shadow of her past for this uncertain venture? Arthur's next words would either forge their partnership or leave them clinging to indecision. "I need to talk to them first," he ultimately murmured, his voice laden with gravity. And just like that, Maria's heartbeat faltered, caught between anticipation and dread. Could their dialogue, his conversation with Ethan and Olivia, unlock the doorway to the future they envisioned? Or would her vulnerability be met with his own tired resignation to the status quo? This moment hung suspended as she awaited his commitment, a moment that could ignite a broader change or send her spiraling back into doubt. The stakes were higher than the ground beneath them. They were laying the foundation for something neither of them could fathom. The words hung heavy in the air, a challenge pulsing between them. Maria felt her breath constrict, but within that tension also bloomed a renewed sense of purpose. Arthur's admission wasn't a roadblock. It was an invitation. He needed to connect with his children. What he was about to do could reshape not just their destinies, but his own. Maria watched as he processed her earlier statements, the creases of doubt intertwined with flickers of hope. His struggle mirrored her own path of self-discovery. Reflecting on her earlier position, trapped in expectation and limitation, she acknowledged how far she had already traveled. Empowered by her clarity of vision, she resolved it was time for action. They could no longer linger at the threshold. "A conversation is the first step, but we need to plan," she urged, mentally laying out the framework for their approach. "You'll need to create a safe space, one that invites Ethan and Olivia to express themselves freely." As Arthur nodded, the tension in his shoulders eased slightly. "You're right. I have to be different," This isn't just about art for them. It's about who they are, he murmured, the dawning realization sparking a subtle transformation in his demeanor. But with the dawning light came the specter of past failures. Maria saw the weight of his experiences settling back on him, threatening to dampen this budding resolve. "Let us talk about the logistics," she interjected, her voice sharper now, reclaiming the momentum. "How do you envision this conversation unfolding? What are the challenges you anticipate?" The questions forced him to confront the issues head-on. His brow furrowed with contemplation as he began to outline potential scenarios, weaving through his fears and aspirations alike. Maria noted how the dialogue shifted from abstract to actionable, his hesitance slowly morphing into a readiness to confront uncomfortable truths. "I think they need reassurance, perhaps come at it from a more personal angle, acknowledging my absence as much as celebrating their talent. They need to know I'm not just a distant figure," Arthur articulated, the sincerity in his tone echoing a growing urgency. "Exactly," Maria affirmed. "People respond to authenticity. Remind them what they mean to you. Tell them how their art awakens something you've left dormant for too long." As she spoke, she couldn't ignore the echoes of Arthur's potential for transformation. It struck a chord within her. She understood that her past was littered with moments where she had settled, allowing her potential to slide quietly behind the roles others had assigned to her. Each word she shared felt like a mirror, reflecting her own readiness to forge her identity against expectation. "Are you ready to face the resistance that may come from them?" She pressed gently, aware that the internal wrestling match was far from over. "Children's feelings run deep. You're going to need to remain steadfast amidst their anger or disappointment." "Steadfast," he echoed, searching for strength in the word as if it were a lifeline. "But what if it doesn't go as planned? What if I can't convince them?" The vulnerability of his question landed like a soft thud, igniting a fresh wave of determination within Maria. "Then you will have grown simply by trying. That's what matters." For a moment, his gaze locked onto hers, fierce and unwavering. Maria took a leap of faith, reaching beyond the confines of practicality. "You could become the catalyst of a new narrative, one where fear and failure do not dictate your family's future." The energy shifted, palpable and brightening, as Arthur began to sit taller, strands of resilience weaving into his spirit. The embers she had detected earlier were now aflame. They were no longer just dreaming of transformation. They were on the brink of it. "Let us make a timeline," he said, lifting himself fully into the moment. "I'll speak with them tonight, lay out everything that's on my mind." A rich thrill coursed through Maria, a blend of apprehension and elation. "Let me help you prepare. We can roll out our plans together." But even as those words filled the room, a new doubt settled at the edges of her consciousness. What would happen after the conversation? If Arthur managed to breach the substantial gap he had created with his children, how would they move forward as a united front? Would his revelations foster a lasting bond, or would they veer into the complexities of regret and unresolved feelings? "Are you ready for that, Arthur? The aftermath could demand just as much of you as the conversation itself," she cautioned, apprehending the uncertainty ahead. His nod came slow, contemplative, the fire in his eyes dimming momentarily. "Yes, but that's another discussion, isn't it?" Maria noted the thread of hesitation lingering, knowing the journey ahead would be grueling. They had ignited a sense of purpose born of their connection, but the trials waiting in the shadows threatened to eclipse that charged atmosphere. Maria felt her heart quickening, caught between excitement about the risks and the unspoken dread of what lay ahead. The next steps were clear but fraught with vulnerability. She knew they stood at a crossroads where moments to act were at once tantalizing and terrifying, aware their realities would soon hinge on the decisions they made together. How they navigated their individual responses to adversity would determine the depth of their partnership. The moment of truth hovered tantalizingly close, just out of reach. And the question lingered after the talking: what would they truly discover about themselves? After the conversation rolled toward its inevitable climax, Maria felt the taut energy between her and Arthur slowly settle into a contemplative silence. It radiated nothing but possibilities, but beneath that exterior, A thin veil of anxiety nestled deep within her core. The moment was approaching when the past would collide with aspirations, and no amount of planning could mitigate the ripples that would ensue. A heavy weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders, and she pondered her own capacity for guidance as the sun dipped below the horizon. Casting golden hues across the room, Maria withdrew into her thoughts. What was at stake was more than just a family reunion. It was a crucible for deep-seated emotions that had lain dormant for years. Would Arthur rise to the occasion, or would the ghosts of past failures pull him away from genuine connection? That feared outcome shadowed her hopes, igniting a sense of urgency inside her. Arthur's voice broke through her reverie, tinged with both determination and vulnerability. "I'll do it. I'll face them tonight." The fire in his eyes flickered. Was it resolve or fear? She couldn't tell. "Are you sure you want to go through with this now? I know you've thought about it, but sometimes a moment's hesitation can reveal what we're truly ready for," she suggested, sensing the delicacy of his state. To push him too hard might unravel the resolve he had built, yet they both understood time was not an ally in emotional healing. "Yes, I need to do this now. If I don't, it'll only fester." His voice carried a weight that resonated with her. She could almost taste his resolve, a bittersweet mix of fear and hope. Acknowledgement is a powerful first step, but follow-through is crucial, she cautioned, her mind racing back to her own moments of hesitation. There had been times she dilly-dallied on opportunities that could have transformed her future. You need to strategize, not just express what you feel, but invite them to share their sentiments as well. Arthur frowned, caught in a tide of thought. But what if it hurts? What if they resent me more deeply after tonight? His fear was raw, echoing with the raw edges of regret. Then it's an opening, she emphasized, tapping into her own challenges. Both you and your kids need to process that pain to heal. Her voice softened. Open yourself to vulnerability, it's how connection is forged. With a sigh, he nodded, his expression betraying an internal battle between trepidation and burgeoning courage. Vulnerability is scary, it's like walking into a room blindfolded, not knowing where the furniture is. Maria saw the truth of this in him, recognizing that vulnerability often held the key to development. Yes, but you can't be defined by the obstacles in that room. You can choose to navigate through it. This is about facing the messiness of life, Arthur. Are you prepared to take that step? She watched as his breath steadied, the tension loosening with each word. I will make mistakes, and they might not respond how I hope. Definitely, she agreed. But you'll be present for them, and that counts. Think of it as your own artistic creation. The more raw and honest, the more powerful. A spark flickered in his eyes again, chasing away doubt. You're right. I want to know until I try. The thought of him embracing the potential within himself stirred excitement within her. It reminded her that personal growth often demanded bravery. Perhaps she too would need to engage with that kind of courage, diversifying her own artistic endeavors instead of confining herself to the familiar. Just remember, Arthur, she said, her voice dropping to a softer tone. This journey won't end tonight. There will be feedback. There will be iterations and setbacks. Your evolution and theirs will require nurturing in the days to follow. He met her gaze, the embers of understanding igniting in his expression. The two of them stood on the brink of a significant shift, ready to confront their respective narratives. Let us refine our objectives. Then, he suggested, his mind racing toward clear action. As they leaned into the evening's unfolding drama, Maria wrestled with her own personal transition. The fears she had buried too long hinted at their readiness to resurface. She couldn't ignore that lingering question. If she was advising Arthur to confront his children, wouldn't she also have to confront her own uncharted territories? The clock moved relentlessly forward, anchoring them in time. Neither of them knew whether the upcoming discussion would weave a masterpiece or unravel it completely. But with each concise step, they embraced their reality, ready to shape their futures. Yet deep down, Maria wrestled with her own impending revelation and the hidden honesty behind their interactions. If they ventured into this transformative moment, what fundamental truths about themselves would be revealed? As the walls beckoned them onward, The weight of uncertainty thrummed in the air, a reminder that unveiling connection often accompanies the risk of discovery, especially when navigating the labyrinth of relationships. With a final breath, they prepared for the night ahead, spotting a blip of light at the end of a smiling vulnerability. Would it illuminate more profound transformations, or would shadows await them in the aftermath? Maria's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the glass of water on the table. The cool touch brought an unshakable clarity, a stark contrast to the whirlpool of thoughts that swirled in her mind. The sun had set, and the room dimmed further, echoing her internal shadows. Tonight was supposed to be a turning point for Arthur, but as each tick of the clock echoed in her ears, she realized that she too had a turning point looming on the horizon. She had spent years redefining herself as an artist. Yet deep inside, she knew she had skirted around her own vulnerabilities. Was she truly living authentically, or merely painting over the cracks in her facade? The notion of fortressing behind her art had once offered comfort, but now it felt confining. The familiar strokes of paint on canvas turned indifferent against the backdrop of emotional risk and the stillness of the moment. Maria's thoughts drifted to her past moments of stasis when opportunity knocked, but she hesitated. What if she had chased those whispers of creativity more fiercely? Would her works have resonated with deeper truths? She wondered if accepting her fear could unleash the same courageous vulnerability Arthur was about to employ. The evening's potential stirred something within her, igniting a yearning for self-discovery. It was a journey she had neglected in the quest for stability, while advising Arthur on the importance of facing his own emotional truth. Perhaps it was time to dismantle her preservation strategy, to strip away layers of safety that no longer served her. After all, how could she advocate for authenticity without living it herself? As she pondered this pivotal realization, a soft knock at the door jolted her from reverie. Maria glanced at Arthur, who straightened up and took a deep breath, seemingly gathering strength for the confrontation ahead. She watched him grapple with his emotions, both anxious and resolute, a mirror of her own struggles. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice steady but soft. Arthur nodded, though the flicker of doubt crossed his face again. "I have to be. I've waited too long to face them. It feels like a chain weighs me down." "Chains can only hold you if you allow them to," she replied, her words reflecting the battle she had faced with her own artistic ambitions. "It's okay to stumble. Think of every misstep as a brushstroke. Each one contributes to the whole piece." Arthur relaxed a touch, inspired by her encouragement. Yet, as he stepped toward the door, Maria clutched at her own heart, realizing that her own hidden truths beckoned just beyond reach. Soon, Arthur would face his family, potentially uncovering hidden resentments and long-standing sorrows. Maria marveled at his bravery and wondered if she could equip herself with the same courage to pursue her art not just as a means of expression, but as a channel for authenticity. The tension in the air shifted as Arthur took a hesitant step forward, pausing to face her. "What about you, Maria? Don't you need to confront something too?" His question hung there, heavy with implication. Her breath caught. Was she prepared to strip away her protective layers? The artist who shied away from risk had always loomed, fading into the background while promising a future filled with vibrant creativity. Yet in this moment, she faced an undeniable truth. If she wanted to support Arthur fully, she had to exhibit the same vulnerability she preached. "Perhaps I do," she whispered softly, realizing the magnitude of what lay ahead for both of them as Arthur opened the door. The uncertainty of what lay beyond filled the air with palpable tension. Each step he took seemed to echo with the promise of change, not just for him but for her too. Together, they were about to challenge their respective wounds. Both were on a precipice desperate for breakthrough. Maria stood up straighter, resolute in her intention. She would not defer her journey any longer. The time had come to elevate her own art, to unearth the emotional truth that could ignite her creativity. Stepping forward to join Arthur, she felt the weight of their choices compressing their fears into a single moment. As they crossed into the larger world together, she understood that authentic connections could only blossom from their willingness to be vulnerable. With the door closing behind them, a new chapter unfurled. Armed with newfound intent, Maria questioned what truths lay ahead. What transformative discoveries awaited her? And could the act of creation finally break free from her long-held reservations? The tension curled itself around her, enticing her to step into the unknown alongside Arthur, ready to face whatever ghosts might lurk in the shadows. As Maria and Arthur stepped into the chilly evening air, a sense of urgency consumed her. They walked side by side, each step bearing the weight of unspoken fears, yet also the thrill of impending change. Maria felt the flutter of her heart echo against the ambient sounds of the city cars swishing by, distant laughter, and the occasional bark of a dog. Each sound was an anchor, rooting her in the present even as her thoughts raced ahead. "Are we really ready for this?" she whispered, trying to keep the tremor from her voice. "I can't keep hiding. I'm tired of being afraid," Arthur replied, determination flickering in his gaze. Her breaths quickened, his words resonated. How often had she hidden behind the veil of her art, cautious to reveal what truly lay beneath the surface? How easily had she traded authenticity for security? The notion of stepping into the raw, unpredictable landscape of creativity felt dangerously exhilarating now. She could almost visualize her brush dancing across the canvas, unrestrained, spilling forth the soul that had long been tucked away. But with each breath, another question erupted within her. What if her greatest creation was not in the strokes of a brush or the depth of a canvas, but in the confrontation of her own truth? Her fingers twitched as she thought of the empty canvases stacked against her studio wall, each one a silent testament to the dreams she hadn't yet dared to pursue. "Maria, are you with me?" Arthur's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, his eyes urgently searching hers. "Absolutely," she breathed, her voice gaining strength. "I'm with you." As they ventured further into the night, a plan formed in her mind. They needed to go separate ways to truly confront their truths, her art demanding her full attention, and his family waiting with open wounds. But didn't both require vulnerability? Maria felt the weight of the knife's edge as she considered how to break the silence in her own heart. The last few months had been focused on Arthur's emotional catalyst. His need to speak, to unravel the deeply intertwined knots of his family's expectations had drawn her in. Yet she had neglected her own calling. Facing outwardly meant she must also face inwardly. The mere thought of confronting her own truth rattled her. What if her passion evaporated in the face of someone else's criticism? What if her works weren't enough? As they approached the corner of the quiet street where they would part ways, the reality of her plan crystallized. "I think we need a pact," she said suddenly, her voice gaining momentum. "Let us commit to truly confronting what holds us back. Let us share updates, call them checkpoints." Arthur nodded slowly, his brow furrowed. "A commitment to honesty?" "Yes." "We can't just wait for vulnerability to find us," she replied, feeling a pulse of excitement as the words left her lips. "But we can seek it." The air between them crackled with a shared resolve, each acknowledging the weight of their respective paths. She could sense that they were both about to delve into depths they had previously avoided. Her thoughts began to race, momentum building. What could she achieve if she allowed herself to explore her own edges? What layers would peel back if she sought the tumult of her emotions? "I'll push myself to create without barriers," she declared, driven by a flash of clarity. "I'll showcase my fear, my joy, everything. It's time to allow my art to reflect what I'm truly feeling. And I'll do the same," Arthur added, a slow smile creeping across his face. "I'll confront them, my family, my past. Then let's meet in a week. No holding back." The agreement felt monumental, electrifying. Walking side by side had given way to the realization that they were not just companions. They were reflections of each other's courage as they turned to embrace. A knot of excitement burgeoned within her. The imminent challenge ahead became a beacon. But as they broke apart, Maria's stomach twisted with an unsettling realization. It was time to dive into her emotions, to embrace the unknown. With each step away from Arthur, doubt coiled tightly around her heart. Would her creations be worthy of the scrutiny she so feared? The journey ahead promised to be filled with overwhelming vulnerability, yet within that uncertainty lay the potential for transformation. A handful of questions unfolded before her. Would she unleash a brilliance she had always held back, or would exposure simply prove too painful? With a deep breath, Maria prepared herself to find the answer, knowing the moment she committed to her path, she would reveal layers of her identity long concealed. Yet as she made her way toward the studio, the whisper of doubt lingered. Could she truly follow through? Each thought was a step into a deeper abyss of her own making. Now more than ever, a sense of urgency burned within her. What raw truths would her brush reveal, and could it open pathways she had long ignored? The canvas loomed before her, but so did the questions: what if this was not just an endeavor of art but a revelation of her very essence? Maria stood in the studio, surrounded by blank canvases that loomed like unsung potential, waiting to be filled with truth. The space felt heavy with expectation, charged with the weight of her promise to create without barriers. Would she relinquish her fears? The mere thought was electrifying yet terrifying. In the past, she had avoided confronting the core of her creativity, afraid of exposing herself to judgment. But now, propelled by her commitment to Arthur and their pact, she felt an urgency coursing through her veins, a passion that yearned to break free. As she picked up a brush, Maria recalled the connection she forged with Arthur during their exploration of vulnerability. His journey to rediscover his family intertwined seamlessly with her own. The realization struck her. She was not just an observer, but a pivotal player in this unfolding narrative. Every stroke would tell a story, not just of art, but of her fight for authenticity. The first stroke splashed vibrant red across the canvas, a surge of emotion that represented her fears and hopes colliding. The color spilled forth, raw and unapologetic, mirroring the very vulnerability she sought to embrace. It transformed the blankness into a riot of life, demanding recognition. She felt liberated, each brushstroke a rebellion against the constraints she'd unwittingly placed on herself. As days morphed into nights filled with creativity, Maria engulfed herself in her work. She painted the turbulent ocean of her emotions. The blues flowed like anxiety, the yellows radiated joy, and deep greens depicted her struggles. These colors danced together on the canvas, converging into a rich tapestry that conveyed the essence of her transformation. With each completed piece, she accumulated layers of self-acceptance, stitched together with threads of hope. Finally, the day arrived for her first showing, a collaborative event that promised to bridge her world with Arthur's. Anticipation mixed with anxiety fermented in her stomach as she prepared. She had extended her support to Arthur. Now it was time to unveil her truth. Stepping into the gallery, she was enveloped by the atmosphere of nervous excitement. Strangers milled around, glancing at the varied pieces displayed, unable to know the weight carried behind each artwork. As Maria stood near her collection, a woman with discerning eyes approached, studying the colors before her. "This feels alive," she remarked softly, her contemplation revealing layers that resonated in the air. Maria's heart raced. If there was one person who understood the depth of her journey, it was this woman, seeing not just paint, but emotion. "What inspired you?" she inquired, and with that question, Maria felt the weight of her journey pour forth. With clarity she never thought possible, Maria began to explain her inspirations. The struggles of motherhood, the intersection of vulnerability and strength, and the transformative moment when she claimed her narrative not just in support of others but for herself. Each word was a brushstroke in a story that needed to be told. "I realized," she added, her voice steady, "that creating is not just an act of art. It's revealing who I am and allowing others to connect with that authenticity." The woman nodded, a spark of understanding igniting in her eyes. "This art is a testament to your journey. It takes courage to be as vulnerable as you've been." With that acknowledgement, Maria felt a shift within. She had shed the identity of merely a cleaning lady, stepping into the role of an artist who dared to expose her truth. The fear that had once consumed her was eclipsed by a new kind of confidence, one built on the foundation of her lived experiences. As the evening unfolded and patrons milled around the gallery, Maria found herself in conversation after conversation, each interaction validating her position as an artist, a storyteller. Feedback flowed, and appreciation blossomed. For the first time, she perceived herself through the lens of possibility, understanding that her voice mattered, her journey mattered. Later, as She scanned the room. Her gaze found Arthur across the gallery, surrounded by his children and engaged in dialogue with them. In that moment, she saw him not as the wealthy man burdened by expectation, but as a father forging bonds anew with his children, broken patterns stitching together under kindness. She felt a swell of pride not just for him, but for them both. They were conquering their respective fears, claiming their narratives, and integrating their vulnerabilities into something beautiful. As the night drew to a close, Maria stood by her collection, a resonant closure enveloping her. She had achieved a breakthrough that transcended the confines of her former self. No longer defined by stigmas, Maria embraced recognition not just as validation, but as a testament to her tenacity. She had chosen to face her fears head-on and emerged renewed, having woven the threads of her life into art that spoke volumes. Rising from humble beginnings to this pivotal moment, Maria couldn't help but recognize her own growth, the solid confidence that now anchored her existence. Transformation unfolded not just in her art, but in the acknowledgement of her unique voice. With the gallery buzzing around her, she made a mental commitment to continue this path of exploration and assurance, pushing through thresholds she once dreaded. Maria smiled, filled with quiet pride and fierce determination. Each canvas became a testament to her story. She was ready for whatever came next. Now, dear audience, if you've resonated with Maria's journey of transformation and desire for authenticity, you need to subscribe now to witness more exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like right away to fuel the algorithm and keep these narratives alive. Comment with your thoughts what resonated most with you about Maria's growth. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who crave inspiration and empowerment. Don't wait even one more second to spread the message that embracing vulnerability can lead to true, meaningful change.